The Tempest Chapter 3 The Storm. One day, 12 years after they first came to the island, Prospero was sitting at the mouth of the cave, his eyes shaded from the sun and his head bent over his little mirror. This was no ordinary mirror. Sometimes its glass was clear and sometimes cloudy, and if you knew how to look into it, you could see what was happening on any part of the island or even out on the wide spaces of the surrounding ocean. These images appeared in the glass like a living map. You could look down on them as if you were a gull floating high above in the warm air. What Prospero was looking at now was the sea. At first it appeared as it always did, blank and empty. Then he noticed a tiny ship, its sails billowing in a steady breeze. It was heading north from Carthage on the coast of Africa towards Italy. He smiled to himself. Then he looked up and called, "Ariel, my chick!" Soundlessly Ariel appeared at his shoulder, waiting to hear his master's command. Prospero touched the mirror with the tip of his finger. "All these years I have been waiting to see this ship," he said softly. "Now it has come. You know what you must do?" "Yes, master." "If you do it well, exactly as I've told you, you shall have your freedom." "Thank you, master." "So let it begin." Ariel was gone in a second. When Prospero next looked down at his mirror, he saw that the sea was no longer smooth. The little ship was heaving through towering waves, and he could see tiny men trying to take in sails that were already shredded by the wind. Then thick splashes of water began to fall all around. Prospero, too, as he hurried for the shelter of the cave. He looked out through a curtain of rain that blurred the whole island. Miranda came hurrying through the rain, her fair hair plastered to her face. She stood beside her father and took his arm. The howling of the tempest astonished her as she trembled with the sudden cold. "There's a ship out there, father," she said. "It will be wrecked." "It will, my sweet," he told her, smiling. "But don't be afraid. Not one life will be lost, I promise." It was hard for her to believe this. The wind was more violent and the rain more cruel than she'd ever seen before. How could anyone survive it? Out at sea, Ariel was darting through the rigging of the ship and flashing fire from the mast and spars. None of the crew could see him do this. They were so lashed by the downpour that they could hardly see their own hands clinging to the ropes, but they sensed that they were being dragged slowly and steadily towards the island. When the tempest reached its height, they could only watch in helpless horror as the ship dashed itself against the rocks. A vast wave boomed down on them, and they felt the deck beneath their feet splinter and wrench apart. Moments later, the storm blew itself out, and everything became calm again. The waves lapped harmlessly, and the beach was strewn with torn canvas, broken barrels, and tangled rope. A little way out, the ship itself leant against a rock at a helpless angle, silent and deserted. The crowd and its passengers were scattered here and there along the shore, unconscious but still alive. Just as Prospero had promised, none of them was drowned. Once more, Ariel's melodious voice came whispering through the cave. "All is done, master," he said, "as you commanded." "And the men are all safe?" asked Prospero. "Every mother's son." "My gentle spirit, you've done well. Now go down to the shore and watch them as they come to their senses. They must remain safe until I'm ready for them." In the blink of an eye, Ariel was gone, and Prospero turned to the mirror. He watched one group of men in particular as they began to wake and move. There were 4 of them, and they were all well known to him. He traced his finger along the glass. Yes, there was Gonzalo, who had been kind to him on the day he was banished from Milan. Next to Gonzalo, curled up in a rich cloak, was his master and Prospero's old enemy, Alonso, the King of Naples. Further along the beach, he could see Alonso's younger brother and the thin-faced Sebastian, who had plotted with Antonio. Finally, Prospero's finger stopped at his brother, and he gave a grim smile. He breathed the name, Antonio. "Yes, you, my treacherous brother, who banished me to make yourself Duke of Milan." He passed his hand over the glass, and the picture shimmered and changed to another part of the beach. There he saw a young man sitting on a rock by himself. His arms were clasped around his knees, and his head was bowed in misery. He was Ferdinand, Alonso's son. Prospero remembered seeing him when he visited the palace at Naples. He was just a boy then, but he was full of life and showed great promise. Now, however, he was lost in sadness, sure that his father had been killed in the tempest. There were other figures too, dotted about the island, servants of King Alonso. Here, stretched out like a starfish, was a skinny man with a colourful jerkin and bells on his hat. And there was a plump one, prodded against a barrel and snoring. "So," said Prospero to himself, you all find yourselves on my island, don't you? And you wonder what's become of you now. Well, we shall see. We shall soon see."